Hey guys, I'm trying to hit 10k subscribers by the end of the year and I think we can get there with your help, so please subscribe. It would honestly mean a lot to me. Now let's go right into the stories. I never thought I'd find her in bed with another man in our home. It was a Thursday evening, just another typical day in our life together. Sarah and I had been married for 3 years, and while things hadn't always been perfect, I believed we were happy. I came home from work, tired but excited to spend some quality time with her. Little did I know, everything was about to shatter. I walked in through the front door, dropped my keys in the bowl by the entrance, and called out, "Sarah, I'm home." The house was quiet, too quiet. I noticed her car was in the driveway, so I assumed she was either in the shower or still getting ready. I decided to surprise her with dinner, quickly rummaging through the fridge for some leftovers. As I heated up the food, a feeling of unease began to creep in. Something about the silence felt off. I could feel my heart rate quicken, but I pushed it aside. Maybe she was just engrossed in a book or a TV show. I shrugged it off and headed toward the bedroom, expecting to find her snuggled up with a novel. But as I opened the bedroom door, my heart dropped. I stood frozen in the doorway, disbelief washing over me. There, in our bed, was Sarah, intertwined with a man I didn't recognize. I felt my stomach lurch, and time seemed to stretch into an eternity as my mind raced to comprehend what I was witnessing. "Mark," she shrieked, pulling away from him and scrambling to cover herself with the sheets. I stood there, my heart pounding in my ears, unable to form words. What the hell is going on? I finally managed to stammer, my voice trembling with a mix of shock and anger. "Please, just give us a moment," she pleaded, but the panic in her eyes only fueled my rage. "Give you a moment? You're in our bed with another man." I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, and I turned to face the stranger. He was still half-dressed, looking equally stunned and guilty. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking. I'm Jake," he said awkwardly, his eyes darting between Sarah and me. "I didn't mean to." "Get out!" I shouted, the adrenaline surging through me. I couldn't believe what was happening. I felt like I was in some twisted dream that I couldn't wake up from. Jake scrambled out of bed, grabbing his clothes and slipping on his shoes as quickly as possible. As he rushed past me, I could see the embarrassment etched on his face. He opened the door and bolted down the hallway, leaving me alone with Sarah, who was now sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mark, please let me explain," she begged, her voice shaky. "Explain? Explain what? That you've been cheating on me in our home?" The hurt was too raw, too overwhelming. "I never meant for it to happen," she cried, her hands trembling. "It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything?" I echoed, feeling a mix of anger and heartbreak. "You were in our bed, Sarah. You can't just brush this off." I paced the room, feeling my mind racing with all the memories of our life together, the trips, the laughter, the plans we had made. It all felt like a cruel joke now. "How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the sheets. "A few months," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. "A few months?" I repeated, disbelief flooding my system. "And I had no idea. I trusted you. I loved you. I know. I'm so sorry, Mark. I felt so lost. We've been distant," and Jake was there to listen. It just spiraled out of control. Her words felt like daggers, each one piercing deeper into my heart. "Distant? You think cheating is the solution to that?" "I didn't think. I thought it would help me feel better, help us. I didn't want to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. "And yet here we are," I replied bitterly. "You've hurt me in the worst way possible." I wanted to scream, to rage against the injustice of it all, but instead, I felt a strange numbness settle over me. I turned and walked out of the bedroom, leaving her behind. I needed air, space to breathe and process the reality of my shattered world. I stumbled into the living room, my heart racing, my mind a chaotic storm. I sat down on the couch, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of everything. The comfortable space that had once felt like home now felt foreign and empty. Sarah followed me a few moments later, her face a mask of regret and fear. "Mark, please don't leave me. I love you. I made a terrible mistake." "Love? Is this what love looks like? I thought we were building a life together." I couldn't look at her, I didn't want to see the pain in her eyes. "I know I messed up, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this," she pleaded, her voice desperate. "Fix this?" I said, finally looking at her. How do you expect to fix trust once it's broken? You've shattered everything we had. I'll go to therapy, I swear. I'll do anything, just please don't give up on us, she begged, tears spilling down her cheeks. The desperation in her voice cut through me, but I felt so betrayed that I couldn't respond. I stood up, feeling the urge to leave, to escape from this nightmare. I need time. I can't deal with this right now. I grabbed my keys and left the house, the weight of my shattered heart heavy in my chest. I drove aimlessly, feeling the tears stream down my face. I ended up at a nearby park, sitting in my car, staring at the ground. I felt utterly lost. Days turned into a blur of emotions, anger, sadness, disbelief. Sarah tried reaching out, calling and texting, but I could hardly bear to respond. I stayed with my brother for a while, needing to escape the memories that haunted our home. Eventually, I decided to meet with a therapist. I realized I needed guidance, a way to navigate the overwhelming feelings swirling inside me. It was during one of those sessions that I began to process what had happened and how to cope. You have to prioritize your own healing, the therapist advised. You can't rush into decisions. Take your time to figure out what you truly want. As weeks passed, I began to find a sense of clarity. I faced the reality of our relationship, the love I once cherished now felt tainted by betrayal. I knew I had to confront Sarah again, to find out if there was any hope left for us. When I returned home for the first time in weeks, Sarah was waiting for me, her eyes filled with fear and hope. "Mark, I've missed you," she said softly, stepping closer. "I've missed you too," I admitted, though the words felt heavy. "But things can't go back to how they were. I understand. I just want to make it right. I want us to go to therapy together," she proposed, her voice earnest. I nodded slowly. "I think we need that. But I need you to be honest with me, completely honest. No more secrets." "I promise," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "I want to earn back your trust." As we sat down to talk, the path ahead felt uncertain but necessary. We had a long road to travel, and I knew healing wouldn't happen overnight. But I also knew I couldn't give up on us without trying. Through therapy, we began to unravel the issues that had led to Sarah's infidelity. It was uncomfortable and painful, but it forced us to communicate more openly than ever before. Gradually, I started to see glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, the one who made me laugh, who shared my dreams. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the weight of betrayal felt too heavy to bear, but I tried to hold on to hope. Months later, while we were working on rebuilding our relationship, I noticed something shift within me. I realized that while the scars of her betrayal would always remain, they didn't have to define us. We had the chance to create something new, something stronger. We both committed to being vulnerable and honest. We learned to express our needs and fears without judgment. And slowly but surely, trust began to creep back into our lives. It was a long journey, filled with ups and downs, but I knew that the love we had wasn't lost forever. It had transformed, taking on a new shape forged through adversity. As I sat with Sarah one evening, reflecting on everything we had gone through, I realized that healing was possible, even after the darkest moments. And while I would never forget what happened, I also understood that moving forward was our choice, a choice to embrace a future that was uncertain but filled with potential. In that moment, I knew I was ready to take the leap with her again, hand in hand, and build a love that was truly ours. I found her wedding ring in his apartment, buried under a pile of clothes. The moment I saw the ring, my heart stopped. I knew it was Sarah's, our wedding ring, its polished surface glinting cruelly under the dim light of the room. It was as if the universe was mocking me. I was standing in a stranger's apartment, facing a truth I had never wanted to accept. Let me backtrack a bit. My name is Mark, and I had been married to Sarah for 5 years. Our relationship had always been a blend of love and adventure, a partnership I thought was unbreakable. We had dreams of a future together, kids, a house in the suburbs, and shared laughter over coffee every morning. But all that started to unravel in a way I could never have predicted. It began with a phone call. I was sitting at my desk, working from home, when my friend Jake called me out of the blue. "Mark, I think you need to know something," he said, his tone serious. I felt my stomach drop. I just saw Sarah with another guy at the bar downtown. They looked pretty cozy. I dismissed it at first, chalking it up to a misunderstanding. Sarah had a busy social life, and she often went out with friends. But as the day wore on, Jake's words replayed in my head like a broken record. I tried to shake it off, but the unease settled in my chest. That night, I confronted Sarah when she came home. "Hey, how was your night out?" I asked casually, trying to gauge her reaction. Oh, it was fine. Just a few drinks with the girls, she replied, her smile bright but her eyes darting away from mine. Jake mentioned seeing you with someone else, I said, keeping my voice steady. Her expression shifted in an instant. What? That's ridiculous. I was with Emily and some others, she stammered. I don't know what he saw. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it sprouted quickly. Over the next few weeks, I noticed subtle changes in Sarah. She became more guarded with her phone, often texting in another room. She worked late more frequently and would come home smelling faintly of perfume I didn't recognize. Each of these little things gnawed at my gut, but I tried to ignore the creeping suspicion. Then came the day I found myself in front of that apartment, the place I had hoped to avoid. I had followed her one evening, my heart racing as I drove down the familiar streets. The truth was clawing at me, and I had to know. When she pulled into the parking lot of a rundown building, I parked a few spots away, my breath catching in my throat. I watched as she stepped out of her car and walked toward the entrance. My heart pounded, and I felt like an intruder in my own life. I waited for what felt like an eternity, and finally, a man emerged from the shadows, a tall guy with dark hair. He wrapped his arms around her, and I felt the world tilt beneath me. I wanted to scream, to confront them right then and there, but something held me back. Instead, I watched as they laughed together, their chemistry palpable. My mind raced with denial, this couldn't be happening. Not to us. After what felt like hours, they entered the apartment building, and I drove home, the weight of despair suffocating me. I spent that night tossing and turning, imagining the worst. My instincts screamed at me, and I knew I had to get proof. The next day, I made a plan. I enlisted the help of my friend Jake, who had seen them together. We decided to stake out the apartment. It was a stupid idea, but my need for answers eclipsed all reason. We parked a few blocks away, the sunlight fading as we waited. Jake and I exchanged nervous glances, the tension thick in the air. I kept replaying Sarah's smile in my mind, the way she used to look at me as if I were her entire world. I felt a pang of longing for the woman I thought I knew. Finally, we saw her. She pulled into the parking lot, and my heart raced. This time, she wasn't alone. The same guy stepped out of the building to greet her. I felt my blood run cold as I watched them walk into the building hand in hand. My worst fears were coming to life. What do you want to do? Jake asked, glancing at me, concern etched on his face. I didn't respond. Instead, I kept my eyes fixed on the door, my thoughts swirling in a storm of anger and heartbreak. I felt like I was losing my mind. A few hours passed, and as the night deepened, they finally emerged. They laughed, leaning into each other, and I felt the fury rise within me. Let's go, I said, my voice low and steely. I had seen enough. Back home, I felt like I was drowning. I had to confront her. I couldn't let this go. When she walked through the door later that night, I stood waiting, my heart pounding in my chest. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady but my hands trembling. She glanced up, confusion etched on her face. What's wrong? I saw you, Sarah. I saw you with him. The words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Her face went pale, and she stammered, Mark, I can explain. Explain? You're dating someone else, and you think there's anything left to explain. She faltered, tears welling up in her eyes. It's not what you think. I swear. It was a mistake. Was it? Because it looks like you've been seeing him for a while. You lied to me, Sarah. I didn't mean for it to happen. I felt so lonely, and he was there. I didn't want to hurt you. I felt as if the ground had fallen away beneath me. You don't get to decide what hurts me, Sarah. You betrayed me. She collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could make it work without telling you. I stood frozen, battling the whirlwind of emotions surging within me, rage, sadness, confusion. How could you do this? I trusted you with everything. I know. I messed up. I thought I could just fix it later, she sobbed. I felt a mix of anger and pity. And what? Just continue living a double life? You really thought I wouldn't find out? I don't know. I thought maybe it would go away. Go away. You've shattered everything we built together. As I paced the room, the reality sank in. My wife, the woman I had promised my life to, was sitting there, broken and remorseful, but the trust was gone. I wanted to scream, to unleash all the pain she had caused me. But instead, I felt a deep ache in my chest. "Do you even love me anymore?" I asked, my voice breaking. Her silence was deafening, and I felt my heart crack further. That's what I thought. I spent the night in a daze, replaying our life together, the laughter, the quiet moments, the love we once shared. I thought of our dreams, now crumbling like dust. Days turned into weeks as I tried to process everything. Sarah was desperate to reconcile, to prove she could change, but every time she reached for me, I flinched. The trust that had been the foundation of our relationship was irreparably damaged. We went to therapy, and while it helped us communicate, the path to healing was rocky. I found myself wrestling with the betrayal, the constant reminder of her infidelity lurking in the background of our conversations. One night, we were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, silence filling the space between us. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw the hurt and regret in her eyes. "Do you think we can ever get back to what we had?" she asked softly. "I don't know," I admitted, my heart heavy. "I want to try, but it's hard. You've taken so much from me." "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she replied, her voice trembling. As the weeks turned into months, we found a rhythm. We took small steps forward, but the scars remained. I learned to navigate the complexities of love after betrayal, realizing that healing takes time, far more time than I had anticipated. Slowly, I began to forgive her, not just for her sake, but for my own. It was a long road, filled with doubts and setbacks. Yet, through the pain, I also found moments of clarity. We talked openly about our feelings, our insecurities, and what we both needed from each other moving forward. In the end, I realized that while the wound may never fully heal, it didn't mean our love had to die. It became a new kind of love, one built on honesty and understanding, a fragile but resilient connection. And while I couldn't forget what had happened, I chose to believe in the possibility of a brighter future together, one day at a time. I found my wife's secret messages the day before our anniversary. It was supposed to be a happy time, our anniversary was just around the corner. In my mind, I pictured a cozy dinner, the two of us reminiscing about our best moments. But as I stared at the screen of my phone, my heart plummeted. The messages were clear, and they painted a picture I never wanted to see. The day had started off like any other. I woke up early to prepare a surprise breakfast for my wife, Sarah. We had been married for 6 years, and I always enjoyed finding little ways to make her feel special. As I flipped pancakes and brewed coffee, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement for our anniversary. I had even ordered a beautiful necklace, something I thought she would cherish. After breakfast, Sarah left for work, her usual cheerful self. I kissed her goodbye and made a mental note to pick up flowers on my way home. It was a typical morning, one that now feels so surreal. As the day progressed, I found myself immersed in my own work. I'm a graphic designer, and deadlines tend to consume my time. But as I sat at my desk, I noticed my phone blinking with a notification. It was a message from Sarah's phone number, but it was a number I didn't recognize. My heart raced as I clicked it open, half expecting a sweet note about dinner plans. Instead, I found a series of messages exchanged between Sarah and someone named Jake. My heart dropped as I read the words, intimate exchanges, shared jokes, and plans to meet. The final message sent chills down my spine. "I can't wait to see you tonight. Just us, no one else." Time seemed to stop. I reread the messages, disbelief washing over me like a cold wave. This couldn't be happening. I considered the possibility that it was a prank or perhaps a misunderstanding, but deep down, I felt a nagging certainty that I was staring at the truth. I remember feeling numb, moving mechanically as I closed my laptop and grabbed my jacket. I had to confront her. My mind raced with a mixture of anger, confusion, and a strange sense of betrayal. How long had this been going on? Had I really been that blind? As I drove to her office, my thoughts spiraled. I recalled the little things I had brushed off, her late nights at work, the occasional missed calls, the way she'd been more guarded with her phone. All those moments replayed like a haunting soundtrack, pieces falling into place that I wished I could unsee. When I arrived at her office, my palms were sweaty, and my heart pounded. I waited in the parking lot, watching as people came and went, but I couldn't focus on anything but Sarah. I wanted to believe she was innocent, but the evidence was damning. Finally, I spotted her coming out, her hair blowing gently in the breeze, her face lighting up as she chatted with a coworker. I felt my stomach twist. The way she smiled at them made it feel like I didn't even know her. "Sarah!" I called out, my voice sharper than intended. She turned, her smile fading as she approached the car. I could see the confusion in her eyes. Hey, what's wrong? She asked, tilting her head slightly. Can we talk? I gestured toward the passenger seat, and she climbed in, a sense of foreboding hanging between us. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I found some messages on your phone, I began, my voice trembling. From someone named Jake. The color drained from her face. What do you mean? You know what I mean, Sarah. I read everything. How long has this been going on? Her eyes widened, and she shook her head as if trying to deny reality. It's not what you think. Jake is just a friend. I can explain. But I couldn't listen to her excuses. The hurt was too raw, and the betrayal too deep. You said you were going to be working late, but you were with him. Were you planning on telling me? Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. I didn't mean to hurt you. I swear it got out of hand. Just got out of hand? You're meeting him tonight, aren't you? You're not even trying to hide it. I was going to break it off. I don't know what I was thinking. She was pleading now, and I couldn't tell if she was genuinely remorseful or just panicking. The anger bubbled inside me, fueled by a mix of pain and betrayal. I looked out the window, taking a moment to process the whirlwind of emotions threatening to swallow me whole. The woman I thought I knew had shattered before my eyes. Why would you do this? I asked quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. What did I do to deserve this? I don't know, she sobbed, her hands wringing together. I've been feeling so lonely, and I didn't want to burden you. I thought it would help. A sharp laugh escaped me, filled with bitterness. You thought cheating would help our marriage? You didn't think to talk to me about it? I was afraid. I didn't want to hurt you. I felt a wave of nausea crash over me. And instead, you hurt me in the worst way possible. The reality of the moment settled in like a thick fog. There we sat, two people whose lives had intertwined for years, now fraying at the edges. I need time, I said, finally looking at her. I can't do this right now. I opened the car door, the weight of the world pressing down on me. Please don't go. I can fix this, she cried, desperation seeping into her voice. I shook my head, stepping out into the bright sunlight that felt foreign. I could hardly breathe. I walked away, leaving her behind, the tears blurring my vision. That night, I drove aimlessly, my mind swirling with anger and heartbreak. I couldn't face our home, our memories, the life we had built together. Instead, I found myself sitting in a park, staring at the stars, the darkness reflecting the emptiness inside me. Eventually, I returned home, the silence almost deafening. Every corner of the house reminded me of Sarah, the photos, the little notes she left, the places we had shared laughter. The weight of it all felt unbearable. Days turned into a blur of emotions, and our anniversary came and went without a celebration. We had a choice to make, and I knew deep down that trust was a fragile thing, hard to rebuild once shattered. After countless conversations and a lot of soul-searching, we decided to attend couples therapy. It was a long road, filled with ups and downs, but the memories of that day haunted me. Every time she reached for her phone, a small part of me would tense, a shadow lurking in the corners of my mind. It wasn't easy, and the path to healing was strewn with doubts and fears. But slowly, we began to talk, to peel back the layers of hurt, and I tried to let go of the anger that had threatened to consume me. Months later, sitting across from her, I realized that love, while sometimes messy and complicated, could also be a choice. It was a choice to forgive, to trust again, and to learn from the past. It wasn't about forgetting but about understanding what had happened and finding a way to rebuild. As we moved forward, I learned that even the strongest relationships can falter, but with effort, honesty, and commitment, they can also emerge stronger than before. But the memories of that day would always linger, a painful reminder of the cracks that had formed in our love, and a testament to the resilience that love can have in the face of betrayal.